Fallstar says, Patrick, I thought you were a city boy. You want to go camping now? Dude, man. Patrick is changing very quickly with the tyranny that we've seen over the past year. Like, I am legit planning to find a way to get out of the city. Like, I'm done. I'm done being surrounded by tyrants that it's just like everybody around me is a tyrant. And so I'm like, I made a list. Here, this will be fun to talk about, actually, because I don't think I've talked to you about this, Ryan, and you're going to laugh your ass off at me. So,
Okay.
I made a list of options for where my life could go if the government's tyranny continues.
Mm-hmm.
In order of extremeness. Okay. So, option 1, stay where I am in the middle of a big city. Just go like super prepper in my house here in the middle of Dallas. Get food, get water, get guns and ammo, and just plan that if stuff goes sideways, I'll make this a fortress, a self-sufficient fortress until things calm down. Obviously, that's the most dangerous or least secure option, because what probably will happen is it won't be like a crazy shit hits the fan scenario. It'll be a slow 20-year slide into tyranny. And the city is the worst place to be for that. Like, that's where the tyranny comes first. And I was talking to my brother about this too, and I thought this was a really interesting way to look at it. Tell me if you agree or can think of a better way. But I told him that I was orienting my predictions on where we're going to be going by looking at a city like New York or like LA, San Francisco. They are always ahead. They tell you where we're headed. It's only a question of how long or how quickly we get to where that they already are, in terms of gun control or taxes, socialism, blah, 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 right? So that sets...
They're the first adopters of tyranny. Got it.
Yes, exactly.
The early adopters of tyranny.
So that sets the compass. Like, that tells me which direction we're going. Okay, now that we have the direction determined, now it's a question of how quickly we're going to get there. Is it going to be 1 year? Probably not. Is it going to be 100 years? Probably not. It's probably going to be faster than 100 years. So how quickly? What's the pace? And then what I was thinking is I looked at, everybody's talking about all the Californians moving to Texas, and they're talking about the blue wave and how they're going to like turn Texas into a socialistic hellhole, as if it already didn't have a lot of that. And and then I looked at the last election results from last year, and I looked at the percentages, and then I looked at the election results from the election before that, and I realized that even with all the immigration that we've had from California, the percentages only moved by 2%. Now, on average, every single seat, in the House and in Congress and all that stuff, they all moved 2% towards blue. So there is movement towards blue, but it's 2%. Not a single seat, not a single elected official flipped from red to blue. And they only moved 2%. And there's an average of about a 12 to 15% margin. Like, this is a really red state. There's a margin of error. There's like a margin of red in there. And so then I assume, okay, if it continues at 2% every 2 years, every time there's an election, then we have 12 to 15% of margin to eat up. So that's 16 divided by 2. That's, what did I do? No, I did that wrong. So that's, so every 2 years that eats up a margin. So we have 30 years. If it goes faster than that, let's say more and more people move from California and it moves faster than 2%, then we have less than 30 years until some of those policies begin to be implemented. That's when it starts, like, accelerating quickly in Texas, right? So my estimate is like we have 30 years until it starts getting bad fast. So that's what I'm kind of like planning my life plan around. Do you have any? Can you think of a better way to kind of predict that future?
So you looked at election results from the past election? Is that what you said? The past Texas legislative elections. Is that what you're
Yes,
talking about?
last year's. Yep.
I would like to see how that changes in the next election, because a lot of those people did not come into town until this year or last year. So the end of last year at that. So I'd like to see if that progressively increases the rate of change, or if it's still a steady rate of change. So.
Yeah, and my brother said the same thing. He bets that next year the next election in 2 years is going to be 4% instead of 2%, and then it might even accelerate after that, which means that we have 10 years. That means 10 years until shit starts going sideways fast. Less than 10 years if it keeps up, 4% or 6% or whatever change. So that is what made. Go ahead.
So we might want to look back in history and see if we can find an example of this. And see how long it took.
Is there an example?
I don't know. I'm just saying, if we wanted to follow our own advice and see if there was something in the past that could give us an indication of how long this took.
So 10 to 30 years until shit starts going sideways fast. So I need to come up with a life plan that I can implement that will protect me appropriately from that.
Either way, I think it's inevitable.
Yes. Yeah. It's definitely less than 100 years, like, without question. There is no question in my mind. And there is no question in my mind, and I'm happy to be proven wrong if anybody in the comments or you, Ryan, wants to. I don't see it reversing. I don't see things getting better. I see no mechanism in culture or in government or politics or anything that is going to turn this train around to keep it from going over the cliff. Like,
I mean, the spokespeople for the people that have seen what has happened in California and moved to Texas, they will contradict themselves in the same breath. They'll say that what happened in California is an atrocity, and then they'll spout some fucking socialist shit right after that in the same breath. So I don't think that they even know how to learn from the past or learn any lesson. It just doesn't seem like that happens.
Yeah, I don't see a mechanism. I don't see a lever that anybody can pull that will turn this around. I don't think that's happening. So again, I think the direction is set. It's only a question of speed. And I think my best guess right now is 10 to 30 years. Okay, so I put together a list of options. And I put a lot of thought into this, everybody. Like, this isn't a list I threw together in 10 minutes. This is something I've spent weeks thinking through each of these options. So in order of extremeness, we already talked about staying put, prepping here in the city. That's the least safe option, 10 to 30 years out, because tyranny comes to the cities first, and there's a lot of tyrants here, and there's a lot of law enforcement here, and the government has a lot of resources to enact the tyranny in cities. So that's the worst option, but it's also the least extreme, and it's also the least changes to life and lifestyle for now. It would just I would be able to live life mostly normally, plus my fuel storage and food storage and gun storage and whatever. Then next up the list, number 2 would be land in the middle of the country. So, like, a couple hours north of here, you're into Oklahoma. You're in the middle of nowhere. There's hardly any law enforcement. You're not even, you can find places that aren't even incorporated into a government. It's just like land in the middle of nowhere. You can go out there and do whatever the hell you want. I visited a place like this recently, and it was an amazingly perspective changing feeling, standing in the middle of this acreage. Couldn't even see another neighbor. It was just like, I was thinking about the opportunities. I was like, if I want to have a house with a sound booth for audiobook recording, a studio so I can do this, if I want to have an office with all of my computer equipment so I can do my IT stuff, like, I have to buy a massive freaking expensive house to have rooms in the house for all the stuff that I want to do. If I'm in the middle of nowhere with 2,500 acres or whatever, and I want to build a hut for my sound booth, I just do that. I don't ask permission. I don't have to beg the HOA. I don't have to get approval. I don't have to get inspections. Whatever. I just do it. You just do what you want when you're out there. You have freedom. It actually exists out there. to a very large extent compared to the city. And that was a powerful perspective changing moment that I had. And Liberty After Dark says, Starlink, you can have your internet cake and eat it too. I ordered Starlink. I will have, that's one of my preps. Like, people think about food and ammo and water as preps. Internet's also a prep for me. And I grabbed Starlink for that because, you know, you'll have, 30 meg up and down internet wherever you are. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Next up the list from sort of like the countryside, let's say. So that would be like East Texas or South Oklahoma, would be Mexico. So that we're talking like Acapulco, Bonfil, you know, places in Mexico. The advantage of those places is that there's already a network of voluntarists there that have been living there a while, and they know the land and they know how to get stuff done, and they can coach you and help you and support you if you went there. That's cool. I mean, that's something that the middle of nowhere, the country doesn't have, right? I mean, yeah, there's already groups of volunteers in the middle of nowhere, like in the Ozarks and stuff like that would be options as well. But anyway, so that would be another country, and that comes with its whole set of upsides and downsides. Like, you're not familiar at all with the legal system. You're usually at a legal disadvantage in any kind of dispute because you're a foreigner instead of a full citizen or whatever. That's a much bigger lifestyle change, and it's not even necessarily a lasting, sure way to get more freedom, because in a lot of ways Acapulco is more free than America. In a lot of ways, the cartel there is just like the United States government or the local city government. Like, they do violent things to people that do things they don't like. I mean, they are a more honest, more upfront government. They tell you what not to do, and if you do it, they kill you. And they're not
pretending. Unlike
the government, where, you know, they tell you what not to do, and they say, well, if you don't do it, then you'll have a justice system that will protect you, and you'll have a jail. No, I mean, they kill you too. They just want you to believe that they won't. So Mexico, that was the next one. Next up from that, and we interviewed Alex Ugorgi on Anarchast a while back, and we also interviewed Vin Armani on Anarchast a while back. Saipan is the next one up the list. So we're moving up the extreme list, right? Saipan is a little country near Guam, which is southeast of Japan and northwest of Australia. And it's an island country that is a territory of the United States. And it is a population of 60,000 people. The government has almost no resources. They don't enforce anything. Most of the government employees are just sort of lazy welfare whores that just want to cash their paychecks and have a chill life. And this is what Vin tells me. The cost of living is super low there. So like, you can have like a beachfront mansion for what I pay for a house in the city here. The IRS doesn't touch the people that live there and work there. Like, you have no interaction with the IRS, even though you're in a territory of the US. You can go there without a passport because it's a territory, but there is no IRS. The only taxes you pay are like the local taxes or whatever. So no cap gains. So like, you could go there with all your cryptocurrency, do your cryptocurrency investing on the books. You wouldn't even be worried about it. Make a ton of money. You wouldn't even have to tell the IRS or pay capital gains taxes. Like, those things just don't exist in Saipan. So it's like, you get the advantage of your American citizenship and the protections that is afforded, but you don't get the taxes, which is a huge difference. Downsides are, the culture seems to be, they tell me the culture is very sort of lazy and non-productive, and I don't want my kids to grow up in an area where they're surrounded by a bunch of people that aren't, striving to be successful and productive in life. And just like round trip tickets there is like $1,600. So like, coming to and from would be a big deal. That would be a big expense. Like, I don't even want to pay $1,600 to fly there to check it out because that's so expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the next one. Now that was about as crazy as I can get, but I only have one better than Saipan, and that is the sailboat. And I've talked about this on the channel before. So like, buying a yacht, like a 40-foot yacht, and just living on the ocean. Like, I love sailing. So that would probably be fun for a little while, and that's the downside. It would probably be great for a year, maybe 2 years, but then it would just probably be miserable, and I would be sick of it. But I mean, that's the freest place on earth, is floating around in the ocean, right?
Yeah.
So those are the options I evaluated.
You didn't even think about the one spot in the middle of the Saharan desert, that one spot in Antarctica? That didn't even come to your mind. Those inhabitable places that are completely free.
Yeah, so the other thing, the option that wasn't on my list, but because I evaluated it and thought it sucked, was van life. So like I would buy like a school bus and make my family live in it, and then we would just drive around. So like if Dallas got too tyrannical, we would drive to the Ozarks or something, you know, like you just move around the country.
Right.
But man, that is a cramped lifestyle that comes with a whole long list of like ways in which you're not really as free just by virtue of the lack of space. But I mean, anyway. So
yeah,
those are my thoughts. I was actually looking at Saipan seriously.